Okay, started with some images from a piece of mine called Siren, a performance installation for a series of metal tripods with rotating arms. Sound comes out of little speakers, creating a kind of pulsing, whirling, environmental, immersive sound world. Later on this evening, Martin Ware is going to talk about the future of sound. And I was quite pleased to be at the beginning of this evening because I kind of see what I do as being a kind of vision of the future of sound. However, a vision of the future of sound as envisaged from maybe 100 years ago. There's a kind of arcane, slightly old-fashioned quality to a lot of the work that I do, but it's partly because what I'm interested in is looking back at the early pioneers of electronic music, working from first principles, and trying to create new ways of distributing sound through spaces. I'm going to play you an extract of one of my early pieces, a piece called Swing. I did this in 1995 in a disused, gosh, a lot of noise coming from somewhere. Disused electricity generating station. Could someone just fade that down for 1 second, because it's a bit unpleasant. I'm going to need it on again, though, to hear the sound.
Okay. Well, you tell me when.
Okay, I'll put it back on. Could someone just come and do the fader for me? Okay. Is that possible? Thank you. Presenting a disused electricity generating station, what you'll see is a whole series of loudspeaker cones suspended above the heads of the audience. A separate sound is being played through each one of these speakers. They're being made to swing backwards and forwards by a team of kind of bell ringers, if you like. This piece is interesting for me because it contains a number of elements that have gone on to characterize a lot of my later work. The sound is being diffused through a space, but with very low-tech means. This was a series of cassette players. Each cassette player went into a separate hi-fi channel into a separate speaker. So I had 20 cassette players, 20 speakers. The audience is able to move freely around the space to hear how the sound is changing, visual perspectives of changing. The performers in the piece take on a very functional role as operators of a kind of giant machine. And it's a performance. The piece starts at the beginning, it has a shape. It goes through a series of changes and then ends. I'm very interested in creating shaping experiences for a live audience. Okay. Okay, I think you get a sense of that from that. I'll just go back a minute. One of the things that underpins my work is a fascination with invisible forces, things like the electromagnetic spectrum, magnetism, radio waves. I have this kind of sense of childlike wonder when I get two magnets and they repel each other. And there's this invisible force between my hands that I can't actually see, and yet it's a physical, tangible force. When I turn on a radio, and all of a sudden this information appears from the ether. And I came across theremins in the early 1990s. For those of you not familiar with the theremin's an instrument that emits a field of radiation, a field of radio waves, and the performer enters this field of radiation. And using their hands, this is Professor Theremin, who invented the theremin about 1919, you move your hands through the radio fields towards the tall aerial, gives you pitch, woo, like that, and with your left hand you control the volume. And I love this sense of your body controlling this electromagnetic force. For me, it's a little bit like a circle of ether that surrounds this instrument, and the performer enters this circle of ether and actually, by the movements of your hand, creates sound. This led to me doing a piece relatively recently called Force Field. I did this at the ICA last year, and I took on this idea of playing the theremin, playing this invisible force field. And what I'm doing here is I'm using a MIDI theremin, and by moving my hands through the electromagnetic field, I'm generating MIDI information. And that MIDI information I use to control a series of sound machines that I've built, machines that create sound on their own. So, for example, I have another theremin being played by a very basic robot. So as I activate different MIDI notes, I can make one of the arms go up and down, controlling the sound. I can make another one control the volume. I have a series of metal arms on cams, and I can activate these. The arms go up and down, creating sound from this old electronic organ. There are a series of solenoids here that I can trigger. And I'll play you a little bit of what that sounds like. Just jump forward a little bit.